Cyber Reapers. Hello, Cyber Reapers. So, tonight or today, whenever, wherever you are, I would like to talk about a book. The ending to this book devastated me. Don't worry, I won't spoil why, but just as a heads up, I'm very, what's the word? I let the book sit for a bit, as in for a day, before I started talking about it, which is now. But, oh my gosh, that ending. It was satisfying, don't get me wrong, but it was also just very devastating. So, let me get into talking about the book, right? You don't need to have read the previous book, and you don't need to have watched the previous video that I made on, the first book. But feel free to if you want, for a more comprehensive review. But I'll also just kind of fill you in on the premise, without giving away too much about what happens, in the second book. I'll be talking kind of vaguely. So, what is this book series? Or rather, it's a duology. It's the Blood and Tea duology by Hafsah Faizal, and this book is A Steeping of Blood by Hafsah Faizal. And so this is the second book, book two of two. So 2 books. This is the second one. The first one is A Tempest of Tea. So you read A Tempest of Tea, and then you get to this one, book 2, A Steeping of Blood. So, beautiful covers, by the way. Those honestly did draw me in. But I'm really glad I heard about this book on social media. Well, I heard about the first book on social media. And after the first book's cliffhanger, I really wanted the second book, so fortunately I kind of got into the game a little late. So the second book was already about to release by the time I had read the first book, if I remember right. It just took me ages though to actually get the book and then read the book. So now I have though, and I was going, oh wow, a duology. I haven't read a duology in a long while, if I have at all. I don't actually remember if I've read a duology before. So that's pretty exciting, especially because I'm writing a duology. So it's nice to see kind of the pacing of how that works in other books. So yeah. As a little review, or if you haven't seen my previous video, let me just kind of talk about what is this series, or what is this duology. So, in book 1, we are introduced to this world. It is a paranormal, fantastical, historical. So think in another world. So it doesn't have the same countries, different world, but kind of similar practices, as if you went back a few hundred years from now. It has sort of similar technology to about then, and just that, plus vampires. So, and also a little bit of magic. There's some magical weaponry here and there sprinkled in. So, that's the world itself. It's got a monarchy as in the main country or region that the book takes place in. It's got a monarchy, and or is it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called a monarchy. Well, there's one head of the government, and they rule everything, and there's a council beneath them, and then from there there's the aristocracy. And there's aristocracy among humans, and there's also aristocracy among vampires. It's kind of, can kind of blend in a mix of both as well, as some vampires hide their fangs and who they are and stuff. But yeah. And while the world itself is super exciting, and the plot, we'll get to the plot in a minute, the characters I think are really what pull the story through, making it so cool. Especially book 2. Let's hold off on that for a minute though, because the character development is so great in book 2. But book 1, we are introduced to the crew. You know, there's a crew. Arthi and Jin are main, well, I would say Arthi, Jin, and Flick are our main characters, and we kind of follow their perspectives. It's a third-person point of view book, but it switches, you know, it switches with each chapter of who the book kind of follows, and those are the main 3. And they're people of color. They're actually from different, like, socioeconomic status groups. Flick is from, like, really high society aristocracy, and Arthi is an immigrant who, like, started living on the streets as a kid and worked her way up. And then Jin is kind of in the middle, because he was from a family that was wealthy, but then their house burned down and he became an orphan, so he then proceeded to join forces with Arthi, and they formed a brother-sister bond, and they've been living, kind of working their way up through society since. And as part of working their way up, they founded a tea house, which doubles as a blood house at the night. So in the daytime, it, you know, legally serves tea to anybody, to humans. Actually, vampires wouldn't want to drink the tea, but so it serves tea to humans in the daytime, and then at night it serves blood to vampires. So that's pretty fun. And the 2 of them, Arthi and Jin, work the place. Flick kind of joins forces with them every so often to do kind of forgery jobs. She's really good with impersonating, or what is it? Not impersonating writing. What do you call that? When you imitate someone's handwriting really well. I mean forging, yes, but I feel like there's another word that I'm missing. Forging, handwriting, imitating handwriting. Anyway, that's what Flick does, that's what she does. And, yeah. But yeah, the group makes for an interesting trio. And then there's also other characters that kind of come along and they play different roles in the, just kind of, the book fell on me. Oops. They play different roles in the story. And in the heist that the plot of the first book kind of revolves around. So, someone approaches Arthi and essentially says, "Hey, Arthi, you're good with, like, illegal activities. What do you say we join forces to get a heist to happen?" And specifically, it's a heist to break into this big fancy place where all the vampires meet up. And it's to find a ledger that supposedly has really important information that would incriminate the head of the government. And so Arthi is like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Especially because, for reasons that I don't quite remember, the tea house is in danger of being shut down. And so Arthi is thinking, hey, if I can, like, blackmail the monarch, maybe I can keep my tea house going. Which, I mean, from the outside sounds a little goofy, but as you're reading, you really do feel, oh, okay, this tea house is really, like, it's a mix of is her home, and it's also her way of showing defiance against this really colonial land and government, because she is from somewhere that has been colonized, and she is really disconnected from her culture and her history and ancestry, because of what this government has done. And so her bringing in tea that is really like tea that is from her homeland and is brewed in the way, or with the ingredients that are really like from her culture, from her homeland, that's defying the government in a way by keeping that piece of her with her. So book 1 pretty much revolves around, okay, let's get a team together to get this heist to happen. Part of that team includes Mateo, by the way, and I bring him up because he's important in book 2. But yeah, Mateo is a vampire who is part of high society. He's also a painter, so a pretty famous painter. And yeah, he comes in to help with the heist. He also flirts a lot with Arthie. And also Jin and Flick start to have a little something as well. And yeah. So book 1 results in shenanigans involving the heist and the vampire place and the government, and yeah. That's book 1. We come into book 2 after the events of book 1. I'm not gonna clarify what happens, but let's just say it starts at kind of a low point in book 2. And they just, they encountered a lot of challenges in book 1, a lot of deadly challenges in particular, and so their team, their crew, is kind of scattered, and they feel a bit defeated, so they have to kind of rally the troops, and Arthie has to go, okay, let's get everybody back together. We're gonna take on the government. And now more than ever, everybody is super determined to take down the head of the government. And so that's book 2. That is pretty much the entirety of book 2, is them kind of starting off feeling very broken, and each one of the characters has to kind of face their fears, their shame, their guilt, their grief, their loss, a lot of dark emotions. Each of them has to face it or face their own versions of that, and really figure out who they're going to be going forward. And they do this at the same time as planning and plotting to take down the head of the government. And so that's really neat seeing that. And the pace of this book is actually a lot faster than the first book. So like, first book was kind of slower up front, and then accelerating near the end of getting faster paced. But I think this book really was fast paced for pretty much almost the whole time, because every chapter had like something new and immediate, and then it would switch to somebody else's perspective, and it would be something new and immediate, and then switch to somebody else's perspective. And it was really neat in how it kept captivating me, and I kept going, no, I want to keep with this other person's perspective, no, I want to keep with this person's perspective. And even when they flipped back to the person I wanted to learn more about what was going on with them, I just kept going, oh no, there's so much intensity going on everywhere that I want to know all of the things. I want to know everything that's going on at once. And I really quite enjoyed that of this book. I don't think it would have worked quite as well in the first book with the plot that the first book had, but I think it makes sense with the second one. And so, yeah. Now, I guess I can just kind of mention they go through a lot of stuff. stuff with like, well, it includes torture, and it includes, what else can I say? Well, just a lot of character development. I think Arthi really, it was really neat seeing how she found her own ways of connecting more with the culture of her ancestry, and how she kind of didn't really fully face or embrace it before, as she felt kind of displaced, like she didn't really have a home anywhere. But just this book kind of helped her, or throughout this book she kind of figured out where or with who her home was and her family, and it was just really neat. Also, her letting in the possibility of romance was also super captivating. I'm not gonna get into that, but I love the romance. Yeah, both romances that were happening in the book, I loved them. And I guess that's all I can say on that. Moving on to Jin. So Jin is, after the first book, he's not doing well for reasons, but he figures out how to mend his relationships, and also figures out how to kind of adjust to his new circumstances. And that involves really like trusting other people to not hold stuff against him that he can't control. And I mean, he's been through a lot of loss. He's endured a lot of loss. So he's always, like, he's afraid of losing more people. And so I feel like this book was a big, like, big milestone for him, for figuring out how to, like, trust other people to be okay without his help, like that kind of thing. Moving on to Flick. Flick went through the most. I mean, like, in terms of, she really proved she was a survivor in this book. If you want to see a character who went from, like, aristocracy, doing nothing for herself, kind of a life, all the way to, like, survivor mode, Flick proves that she definitely went through that. She went through a lot. And oh my gosh, her poor hands. She's fierce. She's absolutely fierce. I love her. So that, I kept wincing too at, like, what she went through. I don't feel like I wince that much at stuff I read. And I mean, maybe it's just that I haven't read all that much stuff that, like, is really all that, like, I don't know how to explain. What she went through really did, like, make me go, don't wanna think about that. And it's not like the kind of stuff that requires a heavy content warning, by the way, in case you were wondering about that. It's not that kind of a wince in reaction to thing. It's more just a very specific situation that I'm going, nope, I completely understand why that would feel horrible. Especially speaking as an artist and a writer. So, I think you have to read the book so that I don't spoil what exactly happened to her. But she went through it, and she did what she had to do, to survive and to help her friends. So, like, just really good on her. And then his, like, biggest secret. And he just, yeah, I think that's primarily what I can think of off the top of my head for his character development. Facing that shame and then, like, fueling it, or using it to fuel his, urge to do something, about it. You know, something positive, something like, you know, trying to take down the government. Well, take down the head of the government, to be clear. Yeah. Also, he has very good boyfriend material. Just saying, like, if that's the kind of thing you like, I think he's a good candidate. So, yeah. He's quite the gentleman, but also quite flirty and has great banter. So, yeah. What else, though? I think, what else can I say? What else can I say? Let me check my notes. Wow, I really did wrap everything up actually quite nicely. Alright, so, speaking of wrapping things up nicely, the ending, yes, I'm going back to that. The ending actually did really wrap everything up. It was very satisfying, even though, yes, it was devastating for a reason. Yeah. And there's actually, like, I could compare it to a pretty popular book. Like, there's something that happens in a fairly popular book that I think, when I experienced that, or reading that, it was very similar to reading the end of this book. And then there was a resolution right after. But I don't think I can say what happened in the popular book without it essentially spoiling what happens in this book. So I'm not going to do that. But I am going to keep thinking about it because I haven't felt quite that devastated since reading that popular book. That's wild. Yeah. This ending. It was good though. I did, like, ponder for a little bit, like, wait, do I not like this ending because of what happened? But then, like, after a few minutes of just kind of sitting there staring into space after finishing the book, I went, you know what? No, actually, I do really like this ending. And I get why it happened the way it did, even though I'm still devastated by it, and I'm still sad about it. But at the same time, it also felt right. And, like, if I were to have, like, if somebody handed me this book and asked me, hey, finish it, or, like, if they handed me the book all the way to, like, the climax, and they said, hey, finish it, I feel like there's no way I could have written that ending to be anything other than, like, or anything better, or anything more profound, or more, like, well wrapped up, anything more emotional, anything more, just, this was the ending that the book needed, I think. Even though it was not entirely the one I wanted, it was still the one that this book needed, and I'm quite glad that that Hafsah Faizal decided to go on this route. I read in the acknowledgements, though, like, that she credited somebody else of, like, saying, like, hey, thank you for this, for the suggestion on, like, the ending to make it pack more of a punch. And yeah, I feel like that ending would have been hard to write, but I'm glad that she did, because I think, well, enough said. Good ending. Little sad, but good ending. And I think that's about it. Oh, I'm forgetting something very, very important. Oftentimes, recently, I've been reading ebooks, but this was actually a physical book that I read, so. And reading this on the treadmill was a little interesting, because usually for the ebooks I have, you know, a platform thing that I can put the ebook on. This, no, it would would not fit, so I needed to hold it while walking, and that was a little awkward, but I kind of held it up like a choir binder, so I was like, just switch hands every so often and it was fine. But yeah, so here's the book. Beautiful cover. Unfortunately, there's a sticker on it, but it's still a beautiful cover. I guess I'm not touching the sticker though, because I don't want to leave any sort of scratch marks on it. But yeah, I keep seeing the covers online though of like this portion being purple, and I don't know if that's just like the ebook version or if maybe like that is the usual version, and that the Barnes & Noble edition is like this this closer to pink kind of a look, or fuchsia or something. So I do like, though, I think the intention was for this this color, or at least this portion of the cover, maybe on the original version or maybe on this one, to imitate a specific sari that Arthi wears at one point in the book that is mauve, the color of her hair. Here's the thing though, I don't actually know what mauve is. I mean, I think it's like kind of purplish reddish maybe, but when I look it up, there doesn't seem to be one consensus. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on what mauve looks like. So maybe this is mauve, or maybe the purplish looking cover is mauve. But I think I get what they intended, at least with the cover, and that's really cool. So yeah. So this is the hardback cover. It's also got, hold on, let's see if I can do this. Try not to be too loud about it. Remove the dust jacket. So it's got like a purple inside with gold for the lettering, and also a ram on the cover, because the head of the government is called the Ram. So the one they're trying to take down, Ram. Oh, one more thing I forgot to put in my notes. The dedication, in case you haven't seen it or don't know about it. Oh, where'd it go? Hold on, I skipped it. Is it here? There it is. So, in case you weren't watching, don't worry, I'll say it. To colonialism, you suck. And that's the book's dedication. So yeah. I'm glad that my sweat hasn't quite, lingered on the book, because for a while when I was just holding it like this and walking at the same time while reading, just some of my fingerprints started showing up, and I went, no. But at the same time I was going, wait, doesn't this mean the book has been like read and well loved and stuff? But at the same time a part of me is going, no, keep it like it's new. Part of why this annoys me, there's a little, I don't even remember when this happened, there's a little scuff right here, and I'm going, I got this like a few weeks ago, how is there a scuff already? But again, I think there's something really nice about like marks on a book that show that it's been, read and enjoyed. So I do quite like that. Yeah. And I was walking for a while to try to finish the book. I was going, alright, I'm just gonna like finish the book while walking on the treadmill. It got to like where I was walking for an hour and 40 minutes and I was still maybe an hour away from finishing the book. And I went, okay, I can't walk anymore right now while holding this book. I gotta sit down and read the rest. So I did. And I'm glad for it. I quite enjoyed this. I was a little nervous again about whether I'd enjoy the ending, but I did. So, 5 stars. I like the wool, that you can feel the texture on the design. So, those are all my thoughts on A Steeping of Blood, and also, of course, the duology as a whole, Blood and Tea by Hafsah Faizal. And I highly encourage you read it. But regardless, thank you so much for listening. You are an awesome listener, and I hope that wherever you go next, whatever you do next, that it is fun and or relaxing and or worthwhile to you.